Picture this, a tiny open-pit beef stand parked beside a pallet warehouse in South Baltimore. This isn't some charming roadside spot. It's a battered trailer barely passing as a food truck. And here's the unsettling part. Somewhere out there, someone bought one of those sandwiches, took a bite, and said, "Wow, this is actually good." They had no idea the man behind the grill wasn't just cooking like a normal vendor. Not even close. The man serving the food was Joe Metheny, a serial killer who claimed his meat had a special blend. According to his own words, human flesh tastes very similar to pork. And when it's mixed together, no one can tell the difference. And that's where this story begins. I'm Amy. Let's recap. Joe Metheny's small open-pit beef trailer sat beside an industrial pallet facility. It's the kind of place you don't stumble upon by accident, unless you work there, or your GPS has completely failed you. The property stretches across nearly an entire city block, surrounded by tall chain-link fencing topped with barbed wire. During the day, the space is alive with forklifts, thick diesel fumes, and towering stacks of wooden pallets, thousands of them. But when night falls, everything changes. The machinery goes silent. The lights shut off. The gates are locked. The workers disappear. Almost every worker. Except one. 41-year-old Joe Metheny.
That pit beef roadside stand is just a side hustle on the weekends. His real job is forklift operator and nighttime security guard at this place. The pallet yard backs up to a small patch of woods, and tucked right against that south fence is a single-room trailer where Joe Metheny lives. It's a real no-one-can-hear-you-scream situation. And that is where Rita Kemper finds herself in early December 1996. Now, Joe claimed he'd run out of his special meat and needed to re-up before the weekend rush. When he lunges, Rita bolts for the door, sprints outside, but Joe, 450 pounds of fury, all jacked up on God knows what drug, catches up, beats her, drags her back in the trailer, and rips off her clothes, tries to violate her, while telling her exactly what he thinks her future looks like. "I'm gonna kill you and bury you in the woods with the other girls." That is not an empty threat, but don't count Rita out just yet. In a moment of pure survival instinct, she shoves past him, scrambles to a window, dives through it. She's hurt, she's scared, she's half naked, but she's alive. So she runs for it, uses the pallets to somehow get up and over the fences and the barbed wire, and makes it to the cops. And that is how Joe Metheny's entire gruesome operation starts to crack, because Rita got out. So if you ask Joe, all that violence started a couple years earlier, back in July of 1994. According to him, and this is his villain origin story, one night he comes home, not to that creepy trailer by the pallet yard, but to an actual place in a Baltimore neighborhood, and he finds it completely cleaned out. His wife is gone. His 6-year-old son is gone with her. Now, his wife had left him for another man, and Joe claims that together they spiraled even deeper into the drug life. That spiral, he says, eventually drew the attention of social services, who took his son out of their house, but Joe couldn't get custody back because, as he said, his criminal record and his own drug use was like, no. So now that he's living alone, Joe cooks up what he thinks is a brilliant plan. He convinces the owner of the pallet company to let him live on site. He'll watch the property at night, he says, keep an eye on things, make himself useful, hand over the keys, boss, Joe's got this. And of course, he likes it. I mean, right? It's dark, it's isolated, the perfect place for the killing spree he unleashes. At some point, months later, at some point, he says he heard his wife and her new man might be hanging out under the bridge. So he's really angry, mostly because of the son. He says that he lost his son. So he goes looking for them with an axe. Now, by the end of that night, he claims 5 people are dead. He doesn't find who he's looking for. So Joe says he takes his rage out on 2 homeless men sleeping on this old mattress under the bridge, kills them, chops up their bodies, and leaves the remains right there. Tosses a few branches on top to hide them. Then he moves on to 2 women in the area. He kills them too, allegedly dumps their bodies in the river. And because Joe's paranoia is apparently just as dangerous as his temper, he notices a man who's fishing nearby, casting from the shore. And he decides that guy has seen too much. So he grabs a steel pipe off the ground and beats him to death. It's chaos. Less than 3 weeks later, cops arrest him for the murders of the 2 men. It sounds like the story's over, but, of course it's not. Because a year later, the case hits trial and Joe walks free because the prosecutors can't make the charges stick. And while everyone thinks he's just another guy slipping through the cracks, oh, no, because they have no idea that there is more out there. Like Cathy Ann Magaziner, 39 years old. Joe brought her back to his trailer before he was locked up for the murders under the bridge. So within an hour of walking through the door with her, he strangles her with his hands and an extension cord. Cathy's dead long before anyone even realized how dangerous he really was. And here's the part that'll throw you. Joe Metheny didn't present like the boogeyman. I mean, not at first. Sure, he's enormous, this 450-pound wall of a man. But if you knew him casually or, you worked with him or something, you might call him charismatic.
His friends called him by the nickname Tiny, one of those ironic labels that says the exact opposite of reality. At the local bar, he was a familiar face, just another regular blending into the crowd. But back at home, the truth was far more disturbing. Near his trailer, just a few feet from where he slept, Cathy's body lay buried in a shallow grave. Months later, he returned to that spot. He dug her up, decapitated the remains, buried the body once again, and discarded her skull in the trash as if it meant nothing. All of this happened before he was ever arrested in connection with the alleged killing spree beneath the bridge. Then came July 1996. After being acquitted, Joe Metheny walked out of jail and returned to the same pallet company, the same isolated trailer, and almost immediately slipped back into violence. That's when Kimberly Spicer enters the story. She was 24 years old when she disappeared over Thanksgiving weekend. Joe brought her to his trailer, stabbed her to death, and buried her in yet another shallow grave, again only a few feet from his door. And this is where Joe's later confessions pushed the story from horrifying into something far more disturbing. He claimed that parts of these women did not go to waste.
According to him, he cut the meat up, put it in some Tupperware bowls, then put it in a freezer. Then he used it as little open pit beef stand. He said, I had real roast beef and pork sandwiches. They were very good. The human body taste was very similar to pork. If you mix it together, no one can tell the difference. And I can't come back from hearing that. So now let's fast forward to December 1996 when police start circling around the assault on Rita Kemper. So Joe, he can sense that they're closing in. They're circling him. So he asks a buddy to help him move Kimberly's body. But this friend actually has a functioning moral compass, unlike Joe. So instead of helping, he goes straight to the police. On December 15th, officers catch up with Joe Metheny as he's leaving a Christmas party with his boss. And that's when the whole thing finally starts to unravel. Once they've got him, he doesn't lawyer up or shut down. No, he talks a lot. He tells them about Kimberly Spicer. Then he moves on to Cathy Magaziner, describing how he strangled her, buried her, dug her up, decapitated her, all with the casual confidence of someone explaining how to replace a spark plug. And then he just keeps going. He brings up other victims, including 28-year-old Toni Lynn Ingracia, whose body was found dumped alongside I-95 back in 1994. Her case had long been cold, but Joe folds her into his confession streak like he's stacking trading cards. The detectives listen, they're taking notes, they try to verify what they can, but in the end, he's never prosecuted for Toni's murder. But hanging over all of this is those stomach-turning claims that some of those victims made their way into his barbecue beef stand. Now, investigators never found physical proof that that was true, but Joe repeated the story a lot.
In the end, the confirmed cases come down to what investigators could actually prove: the murders of Kimberly Spicer and Cathy Magaziner, along with the assault on Rita Kemper. Everything beyond that exists in a haze of confessions, rumors, and unverified violence. A shadowy record of claims that could never be fully confirmed. But Joe's own words ultimately defined how the world would remember him. At his sentencing hearing, Joe Metheny showed no emotion. He didn't cry. He didn't apologize. He didn't blame his past or offer excuses. Instead, he looked directly at the court and admitted, "I enjoyed it. I got a rush out of it. I got a high out of it. I had no real reason why, other than I liked to do it." Initially, he was sentenced to death. Later, that sentence was overturned and replaced with life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. And then, in 2017, the story simply stopped. Guards found him dead in his prison cell. No spectacle. No final statement. No last words. just silence.